You
can ask the question.
I'd like to call this meeting to order on August 10th at 5 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ballard.
Here.
Ms. Nazario. Here. Mr. Sturgill.
Here.
And Mr. Williams.
Here.
Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Michael, again, I was going to say, let me apologize again for giving you two flags, because you don't want the camera to see that he's looking in the wrong direction. So he's honoring both. I appreciate it.
The larger flag got your attention.
Yeah, we'd rather have too much than not enough. That's for sure. That's for sure. Recognition of visitors, seeing none. First hearing of the public. Do we have anything from the public, please? I see no movement. Now we need approval of minutes from July 29th.
So moved.
Support.
I'm sorry, on the 29th and August 3rd. I'm sorry, there was a second one on there.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call?
Mr. Sturgill.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
And Ms. Nazario.
Yes.
Thank you. Down to old business, the COVID return to school plan. Do you have the old business? Is that you?
I'm going to start a conversation with the
All
board, and
right.
obviously I'll do a lot of listening, and together I'll do what you tell me. But we did meet with Dave Colville, and he's our health commissioner, and he's been sharing information for quite some time, and the CDC has had information out. And part of what the CDC says is they give very strict guidelines, and they say, or refer to your local health professional. And the rationale, as I understand it, behind that direction is based on the fact that different parts of the country are in different places. So when you look at what's going on in Ohio and compare it to Florida or Arkansas or Mississippi, Alabama, the worlds are very different based on how the spread of the virus. And it's, as I understand it, not my data, but directly correlated to the number of people who are vaccinated. His advice during the conversation we had yesterday was either wear a mask or get a vaccine. It's that simple. In Dave Colville's opinion, this is no different than the flu or the cold moving forward. It's never going to leave. There'll always be some version of it, some strand of it that's around, and those who are not vaccinated will be susceptible and have worse health outcomes. And a point that we've tried to make at our past few board meetings, and he also stressed in our conversation, is this is no longer a public health issue, it's an individual health issue. Anybody over the age of 12 has the opportunity to get a vaccination, and as I understand it, we're going to have more here coming soon. Jeff Karuski, do we have any dates yet? I know we're working with our health department to set up more opportunities for vaccinations, but we don't have those dates yet? Okay. As we get those dates, we'll make those available. So anybody over the age of 12 can be vaccinated, and as I understand it, 33% of children in that range, 12 to 18, have been vaccinated in Lorain County. So the question that we have is, in terms of masks, he didn't recommend either way. He said it's our decision. He provided opportunities, and the biggest concern that he shared was, if you don't wear a mask, you'll have to quarantine. So if you're wearing a mask, either person is wearing a mask and you're 3 feet apart or 3 feet apart, and you come in close contact with someone, you don't have to quarantine. So again, it's as long as there's a barrier, either 3 foot of distance or you're wearing a mask, you don't need a quarantine, or if you've been vaccinated. So if one of those things doesn't exist, then you'll be quarantined. So the risk of not wearing a mask in school is we'll have kids missing weeks of school. But he stresses the fact that for children ages 5 to 11, there are the rare cases, but almost never do they get symptoms that have dangerous outcomes. Oftentimes they have symptoms, or they don't have symptoms at all, even though they've been exposed to the virus. Did I miss anything? Those are the pieces. So the question is, as a district, where the other question that was asked quite often is school buses. And the CDC, and again, they told us to get legal advice, and if we wanted to question, but the CDC has no control over what the state does. The Ohio Department of Health is the agency that our health commissioner reports to. The CDC has federal jurisdiction. However, school buses, as of now, fall under federal jurisdiction because it's public transportation. So they have the right to say that we have to wear masks on school bus, which means we'll have to require masks on school buses. But I think the debate that we've had previously, if a child is 12 or over, doesn't need to be if they're vaccinated, they don't need to wear a mask. So a lot of districts are doing the honor system if you don't have a mask. But what'll happen is if a child does test positive, they'll talk to that child, find everybody that was around them, and the questions will begin. Were you wearing a mask? We're 3 feet apart. Are you vaccinated? So we'll gather that information as part of our tracing protocols.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, so whatever we decide, however we do that, I think our expectation will be, and it needs to be communicated clearly to the public, is those things could change. We could become more conservative, less conservative, more aggressive, less aggressive, depending on the virus spread in the community, in the county, depending on the virus spread in our district, and the perceptions around that, I think. So, I mean, we want to err on the side of safety, but at any given time, so I think, what our mask policy or protocol is today could be very different in 2 weeks. And folks need to have that expectation. And I think that's probably equally, if not more important, is whether we start out with them or without them, is when we have to make a change, that folks, whether it's one way or another, that we don't get this uproar of, angst, because they should expect that's going to happen.
I've got a series of questions, maybe. Have we had any consistent talk with our neighboring districts here in the county to understand what they're going to do, so we're all kind of on the same page, or is it just every man for himself?
We have conversations on a regular basis, and I think we have an understanding of what some districts are doing, but some districts are more extreme than others in terms of their level of care or their masking policy.
So there's certain, you can't start our school without getting some level of vaccination as a young kid, as a child, right? Some level of polio shots.
Oh, there are
those
vaccinations that are required. That's correct.
that are required.
Yes.
So have we considered requiring anything of our teachers or our students? And there again, this is not an indictment on anybody.
Sure,
I'm just trying to
sure.
get the questions out so the community understands that we're thinking of all the possibilities here.
As I understand it, we cannot require the vaccines for anyone yet, and I think there is some optimism that the shots will be available to children, I want to say 5 to 12, is that right, in the next couple months, or is it younger? I want to say it's 5 to 12, but they're hoping that there's something is approved the next couple months.
Fall, winter. Is there also the expectation that, I think around Labor Day, that Pfizer may be approved, not as an emergency, but in the normal FDA?
As I understand it, yes.
And, yeah, well,
Younger.
no.
No,
I'm talking
approved
about
for the,
Non-
the older-
I
Non-emergency.
think by the end of September, younger kids are supposed to be
younger kids will
approved
also be
by
eligible. They're
this
hoping
month.
that something will be approved for kids 5 to 12. Yes.
So when it's non-emergency, then is there a different conversation around the requirement or the mandate for vaccination? And who does that? Is that a state thing? I mean, someone decides what vaccinations are required for school. And from what it seems to be talking about in the news is once it's no longer in the emergency state, then it could be on those lists. Who does that? Who has that? Is that a local thing? Is that a state thing? Is it?
I would guess, so I'm not actually, Tony, could you, is it Department of Health? Yeah.
And again, I think some of these questions are questions that are in people's heads.
Sure.
That they need to hear. That's not our decision to make, that's somebody else's, and we follow the law as.
And to further encourage the question that you asked of Mr. Karuski, is there a system that we're going to use to encourage our people, our students and our faculty at the very beginning to make it, I guess, inviting to get the vaccination so we can have less risk going on in our district?
And I'll defer to Jeff on the exact number, but I would say we had 14 different clinics here, opportunities to get vaccinations. How many people do we vaccinate, do you know? I'll put you on the spot, but it was a lot.
The high schools ran 1,000 plus General Johnny, or I'm sorry, Southview ran 400 plus at each event.
At each event?
I guess
Okay.
to clarify my question, though, that's the community wide. To clarify, as our kids come back to school and our staff come back, is there anything set up to say, hey, meet us in the conference room, we're going to have it all set up for anybody who wants it, come and get it? Do we need
And that was a
parental,
question.
do we need
Yeah.
parental, I guess, signatures to do it to the kids that are 18 and under? Or can the kid just opt to say, hey, I'm in the
See,
ninth
Steve
grade and I want
nodding,
to
but I
get
don't think I signed for my daughter.
There was a consent online.
You-
Yeah, there was.
Okay.
The first one we did, you had, the parent or guardian had to be present on site with the student, and then after that, they didn't, they just had to do it with the consent online, and then that was sufficient.
And is there a way, as we're doing our paperwork, we can encourage, because I think the more people who are vaccinated, the safer we are as a community.
Yep.
Is there a way that we can encourage those parents to sign those consents, so if a kid happens to be here and decide, yeah, I think I'm going to get it, we can do that on the spot?
I think our goal is to have information available for our families during open houses and there. Yeah, it's not, and it's a, I would say a fine line, but obviously we're not experts in anything when it comes to this, but we're sharing information from the experts. So, and the experts say that it is the right thing to do, to get a shot because it's the only way to stay safe.
And we've had just an excellent partnership with the health department on this, but, the health department has stopped doing mass vaccination clinics. And I think we did the last one that they did for our middle school students. We only had 73 students participate.
Maybe why don't you talk in the microphone so they can hear you a little better? Thank you.
So the health department has stopped doing mass clinics, and we've asked if they would partner with us, again, for the start of the school year. And we, as Jeff said earlier, we, had at the high school we had close to 1,000, and then that number started to, dwindle later on. And we only had, I think it was 73 students at the middle school level participate in vaccination when we did it specifically for middle schoolers at the end of the school year. So, on their end, and again, we've reached out and are trying to set up more clinics here. The desire for vaccination has gone down.
But again, that number is 30% of students in Lorain County have been vaccinated. So
Yep.
it's the number slowly growing.
Yep.
LCC, you have to wear masks. So in our building, they have to wear masks, I believe. There was a sign, my daughter was there today, walked over from practice with one of the other girls. They couldn't all go in because the sign says you had to have a mask on. So how will that work then? So just the LCC building or the part of the building will be masked and the rest of the high school will not be masked? Because they're requiring it for everybody. So is that how we'll?
That is one option. Again, it's a board policy, and whatever you decide, we'll enforce.
Okay.
Or if you want to just defer and we'll sit down and huddle up and make a decision, I support that as well. But yeah, if every agency has their own rules.
Okay.
And I guess I go a little further and say, so now they've rehashed it. All the federal buildings have to put their masks back on. The hospitals all have to put their masks back on. The colleges, not only LC, but
Most
Cleveland State,
colleges
most of them are all
yeah.
saying we're going 100% mask. And I understand them erring on the side of caution, right? And yeah, that would be my
We're
encouragement.
probably more likely to jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, but I
Right,
think that's
couple.
something that we have to discuss and understand, because those teachers that are in the elementary schools, if the students can't be, well, are we requiring elementary kids wear their masks?
We have required nothing as of this.
We're not requiring anything, so.
But we know that our students 11 and under are not vaccinated. We estimate that 30% of our students between 12 and 18 have been.
And
But those teachers that are there, the staff that are there, then have to deal with those children that have not been vaccinated. So the kids may not have symptoms, but the adults might get it from the kids.
And our adults have all had the opportunity to get vaccinated.
Okay.
And and again, I'll take either side of the argument, and I
I
don't
get
have
it.
strong opinions.
No,
but-
no, we're just trying
yeah.
to flush it out
And
as a team here,
Yep.
so this
And
is
I
the
think
place to
that
do it.
last count, 93% of our staff was vaccinated.
Yeah, our
Okay.
staff vaccination rates, it's
Great.
excellent.
and
It's
93%
really
is
excellent.
amazing.
It
Yeah,
is,
it's-
very good job.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of the other question is, from a legal perspective also, first, I think we can't ask who's been vaccinated.
We can or
and
cannot?
We can.
We can,
Yep.
okay.
And I think it's something that we should document in regards to, it's going to help us if and when, with contact tracing or with the honor system. The more knowledge we have of who's been vaccinated, then the better we can react when someone gets infected or however you want to talk, when someone is exposed. So, I mean, and again, so how do we gather that? How do we make sure we share with the public that this information we're gathering is confidential information within the district? It is not shared with folks. It is not used to do anything, because we have to start that narrative so they're clear on why we're doing this and what this information is for. There's always the skeptics out there. There's always the conspiracy theorists. And so the better we can narrate through that, if it's something that we think is valuable. And again, the discussion among staff is, why would this be valuable? How would we use this? And is it something that's data that we should have and could be helpful to us in terms of how we respond to disease, as opposed to running into an outbreak or something. And if we know that we have a classroom that happens to have, in high school, where there's 70% of the kids vaccinated and the teacher is, that's going to give us a much different response when someone gets sick than not. So, I mean, I don't know. That's a conversation between Jeff, nurses, doctors, whoever. But it's one that you all could have, and then share with us what your thoughts are around whether or not we should be capturing this data.
So I'll add, so I'm clear, if a student or a faculty member gets it, and there's other people around, we're not quarantining this year?
No, we will contact Trace, and we will ask if, we'll get a list of people that were around you, if you were the one that tested positive. We'll talk to each one of those people. Were you wearing a mask? Are you vaccinated? Were you 3 feet apart? And if the answer to all 3 of those questions were no, then we quarantine.
And this year's at 14, 10, or 7, or do we know what the time?
And there's debate on that as well.
It keeps
There is.
changing.
It changes. It's 14 days is the hard timeline. What they're saying is that if you are exposed but demonstrate no symptoms, you can come back after day 10. Or if you've been exposed and had a test after day 5, you can come back on day 7.
And this is not a face of frustration, because I know it's a moving target for all of us. So
It's a fair face to make.
but,
Yeah.
yeah, but I just think the community needs to understand, where we are as we're trying to make this decision. Because, yeah, a lot of the adult business, like you get to a college, they say you're not coming in here without a mask on, and it's like, I think that's pretty reasonable. But then we say, whatever we feel like, we're this district versus the next district. I just think that's a little disjointed. And it's liable to change, like you said, Tim, within a week or so, because things seem to be getting worse in Ohio as well.
And pardon me if I mess up the data here, but Dave was talking about the rate of spread now. Is it about 24 cases a day? Is that what you remember hearing? I think it's 24 cases a day now, but when things were bad, it was 1,500 a week. So although it is going in the wrong direction, when you look at where we are compared to where we've been, it's not nearly as scary.
I think we beat that horse pretty good. Anybody else have any further questions from the board? Because now's the time to get them all out, because we have to make a decision. School starts very soon.
As I listen to it, it seems fairly simple. If not vaccinated, you wear a mask. I mean, we know the 6th graders, up to around the 6th grade, that they're going to have to wear masks, because unless they come out with something in the next, and then there's going to be a period of time for it to work. So, that's going to be into the fall. And I hope that comes, because that is a concern of mine, having grandchildren in school. So I'm hoping that works out for all of us. But it really comes down to that. To protect yourself, to protect others, if you're not vaccinated, wear a mask.
So are we using the honor system with that, or like
That's
Tim
what makes
asked?
me nervous, is every high school kid's gonna say,
Yeah, or
that's the
no.
only thing that makes me nervous. If we can't have them show us, not very many high school kids are gonna be honest
And
say
the
it.
risk is that high school students or 8th graders or whatever
Oh, yeah,
will
junior
miss
high
will
too.
miss school because they'll be quarantined if they come in close contact.
I think you
So
have
then
to-
at that point, then we ask them to show us?
At
That's the only
that
thing.
point, they have to demonstrate.
They
Now,
have to show us
yeah,
their
I've heard
card
different
or
answers in
whatnot.
terms
Okay.
of, we can ask, but they don't have to tell. So we'll kind of figure out what those rules are too, and I'll get more information to you.
Yeah, and again, I think what we kind of, maybe is just how we speculated. On the ask and tell, seemingly folks who've been vaccinated will be more likely to tell. And folks who haven't been, I mean, we don't want to overgeneralize.
Well, it's an easier way to deal with it. Say, prove it. If you can't prove it or won't prove it, we're going to assume you're not vaccinated and you get quarantined.
And again, if we can have
Yeah.
that pre-information, then I think on our contact tracing, it makes the task much more efficient. And again, I think we should try to know as much of how much of our population that's in our buildings are vaccinated as possible. And that might then shape some of our strategy around encouraging vaccination. Because we have to continue to encourage folks that this is the most healthy approach to take, is to be vaccinated.
So back when the kids were home but the instructors were in the building, did we change board policy then to mandate everybody had to wear a mask? And will we need to make an adjustment to anything that we did last summer or last year?
And I think we agreed in public session to follow CDC guidelines,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
So at this point
But I
in
don't think
time,
we wrote a new policy and submitted it.
do we
Yeah.
need board policy then going into what our policy is going to be at the start of school?
I think I understand that if you are vaccinated, you do not need to wear a mask. If you haven't been, you do. So
I mean, is that,
the honor system, I think, is all way to function that way, because I can't card every kid in the hallway. But again, I think to your point, I think we need to continue to encourage people to get vaccinations and to provide opportunities for that to happen.
I have a question back to the middle school. So we had 70 middle schoolers vaccinated. Was that at one clinic or was that at a combination of clinics?
So is it one clinic?
So, yeah, and, we speak with Mr. Cobble, who's been wonderful. 70 kids vaccinated at one event is a pretty high number. I mean, we're not talking about the mass community pieces where they started, where one time it was 1,500, then they would have 400. But if we had 70 middle schoolers vaccinated at one time, and that was before the summer, I would suggest that people are more apt to get vaccinated right now, right before school. There's a different urgency when we see what the Delta's doing, right, and we see how there's enough information about kids being impacted, like skyrocketing, then I think that people might be more inclined to do it now. The opportunity, I think the response could be different. And if we did another one and we had 70 vaccinated, that increase, I mean, again, on their big numbers, it might not be that significant, but I would think if the health department thought they could vaccinate 70 people, that would be a no-brainer.
Mr. Koval did indicate that the numbers for 12 to 18 are going up relative to vaccination. So he did say that's trending positive. The closer we get to school, the more families are coming out. So to your point, yeah, absolutely, it does behoove us to, get in on that train.
He
Yeah.
keeps stressing it's the number one intervention.
Yeah.
So,
And we could have another clinic like during the day where a parent could sign that on mine and they could leave class during the day and go down and be vaccinated. Is that the idea?
yeah, it's the idea.
So we can maybe
do it
get
in
more
our
kids that
schools.
way
Yeah,
right
just like
here. They leave
Lone
class.
Spring with the high school and
That
Southview,
would
and
be great,
just
yeah.
right on site, so they don't,
Mhm.
don't have to go.
Whether Department of Health or Mercy Health, we can
Right.
provide many opportunities, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think to share with our community, this is what Dave and his crew shared with us is, we had lots of folks being vaccinated at our sites, but there's an app they have that shows, I guess, based on zip code, where vaccinations are. In Lorain and Elyria, though they had these sites at Lorain High School, Elyria High School, there were lots of folks coming from other places to get vaccinated, and our numbers look really bad. We're really red, so we've got to continue to encourage our community to get vaccinated, because even in terms of the minority community, and we advocated strongly and we challenged those folks with making sure it was accessible to everybody and all that. Well, they really pushed hard and they really made a lot of creative adjustments to try and accommodate, but a lot of our folks still didn't go get vaccinated. And so we got to push our cousins.
And because we had our kids back since we went home. They've been back for summer school. And how do we behave in summer school with,
It was pretty much normal, I felt. There were a few students that did decide to wear the mask. Now, whether they were not vaccinated or vaccinated, I don't know, but it was it felt, in my opinion, it felt rather normal. I had at one point 20-plus kids in a classroom, and they were mindful of each other and respectful. There was no, those that had the mask, they were fine. So, I mean, it seemed rather normal.
Yeah, and it's not that variant is taken off, and
Yeah.
I believe that we've even changed our social distancing now. It's now 3 feet apart
3 feet.
instead of 6 feet apart, so we'll be closer. We're not changing the number of students in a class or anything like that to
Nope.
adjust for. It's full steam ahead.
3 feet, again, 3 feet or a mask or a vaccine, or if you've had COVID in the past 3 months.
And maybe even with the vaccination piece, that could be a motivation, like for the kids, if you're vaccinated, you have to wear the mask, trying to maybe tie that in as a carrot to hang out, say, hey, get vaccinated so you don't have to wear the mask in school, because a lot of kids don't like to wear the mask. But again, you're on the honor system, so that is a dynamic that, you're not going to check them as they walk in the door, so to speak, but.
Yeah, just be really nice if we had some consistency throughout the county,
Yeah.
because it's going to be tough for everybody to keep up on what's going on, just like a lot of this has been. So,
Have we offered guidance to respective like coaches or folks who do extracurriculars? I think we want to be consistent. And I mean, I'm not saying anybody does it, but I could hear someone saying, well, if you're doing this, I want you wearing a mask every day in school. That could be, I know we had to dress a certain way when we were in sports. There was a set of rules for other folks, but then our coaches may place additional expectations on us. I think when it comes to this masking piece, what's our thought about that? Do we need to be, you don't want someone over-encouraging, which could be interpreted as a requirement when it hasn't been district-wide. So just how are we?
Yeah, even before the vaccine was available, and I think we were back to playing sports, and Dave Cole was strong to recommend not to wear masks while you're competing. Obviously, there's a breathing factor as well. It's just you're at high risk, and when you play sports. And for us, we've not done anything extra or anything different with fall sports, because again, we were from the end of spring, we were told we're done. This thing's not that it's gone away, but no more quarantining, no more go back to normal, which is why summer school, summer camps, we behaved as normal. And then to Mark's point, the Delta variant not only came out, but came out pretty strong, and now we're trying to circle the wagons again to find out if the way we're operating is still the right way to do it. So that's part of this conversation. But I'm not sure there's any way you can play football, for example, and wear masks or stay 3 feet apart. Or, again, the strongest recommendation from the experts is get a vaccination.
Horse is dead.
Get a vaccination.
is there anything anybody else has to add to that conversation? Are we all clear? All right, report and recommendations of the treasurer.
I'd like the board to approve items 8.01 through 8.03.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Sturgill.
Yes.
Mrs. Zario.
Yes.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
And Mr. Williams.
Yes.
That it?
That's all I have.
All right. Where are you? Guess this recommendations of the CEO, superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to defer to Michael and Ross to give us an update on our strategic plan, progress that we made.
So we've got a number of updates tonight, and we'll go through kind of big parts and a few specifics as well. So in a larger sense, our positive behavior intervention support, which is part of our plan, we've got a couple of, I think, important updates here. So the district team that's been working on this for really going back to the middle of last year has decided that across the district we need common expectations. So when we looked initially, each school had their own expectations, and they're all perfectly fine. But we have 15 schools on 14 sites, and we had 15 sets of expectations, which caused some confusion for students as they move between buildings, and causes some confusion for staff who moves between buildings, and causes confusion for our families who have children in multiple buildings. So what the team has decided is that we need common expectations across the district, and those expectations are going to be what we used connected to COVID last year. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, be kind to the environment. And those are the only 3 expectations across the district. Same, doesn't matter if you're in preschool or in high school, we're going to anchor in kindness. And so With that, then our staff will still teach expectations, reinforce expectations. You're going to see messaging coming out here in the next week or so. Aaron's been working to put signs together with the team as well to set up for the schools, but anchored around kindness. So pretty excited about that. I think the team's done an excellent job on that, and it'll help, I think, with consistency across the district for our students, our staff, and our families. Next big update, our team that's been working on a post-secondary transition, that action step. So they're looking at how our students really starting their junior year, senior year, first year after graduation, second year after graduation are doing. So looking to bridge students into post-secondary life. And the goal of our plan is that by 2025, our students are enrolled in the post-secondary program, in an apprenticeship, employed, or enlisted in the military. And so part of that means that starting here in about 6 weeks, we're going to start calling our graduates from last spring to find out, where are they? Are they enrolled in the post-secondary program now? Are they employed? Are they enlisted in the military? Are they part of an apprenticeship? So that team started. We've got our data collection protocol in place. They're working on, and actually Jeff Gruski and Pat Coleman are leading this on, we're calling it a Next Steps Fair. That will be kind of a combination of a career fair, an education fair, social services fair. So our students, our recent graduates can come and get, career advice, education advice, social service supports. So that's pretty cool. Our arts expansion team, which is in our teaching and learning part of our plan. So that group has compiled their research, and right now they are finalizing what they want to learn from other districts and schools. So the criteria, questions that they want to look to learn as we work to expand our arts offerings. And then we also have first drafts of surveys. So those will be going out later on, maybe October, beginning November-ish, to our families and students, so we can survey what their interests are around the arts as we expand. Teaching and learning is going to be cracking open their work again later this week, and then going forward. So we've got a curriculum audit that'll be happening a little bit later on in the fall, and really taking a just good look at course offerings across the district, and then how we prioritize our learning targets, how we design instruction connected. So that group will be up and running. And then we are just starting the equity parts of our plan. So at our principals meeting last week, we got into and kind of previewed the equity work that will be coming up. And then we'll have all of our district leadership team members, all of our school or building leadership team members will be on September 20th. We'll be really going deep into the first parts of the equity part of our plan. So that's all coming up here real soon. Missed anything?
No, but I do want to take this opportunity as we, our principals have started back, and we just had our, I'm going to call it a retreat, but our couple days of meeting with them to set some focus. And I do want to highlight the fact that the nature of support that's built into our plan is something that was spoken to our building principals and assistant principals and our special education supervisors. So really making sure that which lives in the plan and what we report out actually is delivered. And we have a great group of leaders that are looking forward to this challenge and having our students and staff back in the face-to-face 5 days a week for a long time. So I say all that, as an encouragement to our community that we are ramped up for inviting our families back, and we do have excited leaders that are going to extend our plan out so that the fingerprints that we've talked about are actually actualized. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done on our plan. It wasn't meant to be a plan for rollout. It is meant for a plan for sustainability, which means we've got to have a lot of people moving that, and that does take some time. But it is encouraging, some of the work that's been done in the summer. One of the things that we didn't speak on is moving our book study around culture forward. And that's going to be important, that we establish that understanding of what makes a healthy culture just that. And the participants in that book study weren't just the building leaders in the traditional sense of principals, but we had stakeholders throughout our organization. And they then broke out into these little book clubs for sorts, and that is going to help feed how we create our survey. So we get real information about what's going right in our buildings, what's not going right, but not look at it as a place of doom and gloom, but how we can improve. And that's most important. So that update as well, there was a lot of work done relative to just moving us forward with our district leadership team that is formed in a way that it's never been formed in our district before. So I think, just there's a lot of promise behind the work that we have to get done.
Perfectly said. And I was going to just thank the board and the community for your time to let us give you some brief updates on where we are. And to Michael's point, what happens oftentimes when you finish a strategic plan, you put it on a shelf somewhere because there are so many things you deal with on a day-to-day that's just triage. And it's easy to lose track of what we're doing. What Michael mentioned is, or some districts, they roll it out. They, tape the words to the wall, and they have it on binders. We're trying to live it. And what we're doing is we want to take time out of the board, each board meeting, and soon we'll probably go to one monthly with a little bit more substance to put into it. But we want to make sure that you know that this is a focus of ours, and we're actually doing the work, and we want to make sure that folks know where we are, where we're heading, and that we're sincere in our approach. So I just want to thank the two of them, because all that work, that's their lift, and making sure things get done, and it's just incredible to have a front row seat to. So thank you. Please.
So with that, I know there's a lot of moving parts going on down in Columbus right now. I know there's some deadlines, some arbitrary deadlines, but I know we don't have to wait till the last day of the deadline to present. When will that be? When will our plan be presented so we can make sure that we've kind of given some room for ours to be vetted properly? And there's 3 plans going to them. That's
Yep.
next on your list.
Next on the things to talk about. Always step ahead of me. As most of you know, no, you're fine. Thank you. As most of you know, there's through the biennium budget, there's an opportunity for us to get out of state takeover, for us to leave the consequences of House Bill 70. And in order to do that, we have to submit a plan that has benchmarks in that plan, and we have to meet a majority of those benchmarks, and we're out. We have 3 years to do it. If we're not there, but we're close, we can petition for another year. If we're heading the right direction, but we still don't get there, we have another year. Long story short, though, to Mark's point, we're about 6 weeks in to a 12-week opportunity to get this submitted to the state. And what he was referencing with the turnover, or whatever term he used, our state superintendent, Paulo Di Maria, has announced his retirement end of September. And the assistant superintendent, John Richard, was going to be the interim state superintendent, somebody else we know very well. He was actually on our original Academic Distress Commission, but he accepted a position in somewhere else in a foundation. So his last day of work is in the beginning of October. So the question is, when is our plan going to be ready to be submitted? We're presenting it to DLT tomorrow. We're going to put some tweaks on it. I actually texted John today to see if we can get a time to meet with him to share it. And the goal was not to submit and have it rejected or accepted. We're going to give them what we have. They're going to send it back and forth, tweaking it. So I'm hoping to be done based on their schedule very, very soon. So the plan that was put together is aligned with our strategic plan. And right now we're struggling with how to identify benchmarks, because in the expectations, they want this stratified by groups of students, whether it's years spent in district or to highlight different challenges that we have and to demonstrate that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. But they also want it by building. So before we added on to it, I think we had 12 different benchmarks that were broken down by all those different subgroups. Again, we have 15 different schools and 14 different buildings and all the different subgroups. It was 319 areas to measure. So we'll refine that a little bit to make it something more user-friendly. But again, it's very, very clear. It clearly tells a story, and it's something that is rigorous but achievable. And Michael referenced our administrative meeting last week, and I was looking around the room, and I'm very, very excited. I'm working with teacher leaders on a regular basis. Very, very excited about what comes next. And again, I know we have the support of our community and our board, and we're ready. So the plan should be in their hands later on this week.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. And in terms of updates, that's what I have for you. I'd like the board to consider for approval items 9.01 to 9.12, personnel matters.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Sturgill.
Yes.
Ms. Nazario.
Yes.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
And Mr. Williams.
Yes.
I'd like the board to consider for approval items 10.01 to 10.08, operations matters.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill.
Yes.
Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
And Ms. Nazario.
Yes.
And before I pass it back to you, Mr. Ballard, I mentioned teachers and support staff and administrators, and we have an amazing support staff. They've been many, many meetings as we struggle to improve culture. They're always there, always willing to help, and again, we're in a great place. So, thank you.
Very good. And I'll just add, I know we had a small meeting since our Tighten Up community get-together, but to see how quickly we were able to come together as a district and all the people kind of jumped in there and pitched in and made the most amazing event to kick off our new school year. And I would just commend you and the staff, the whole team and the community for a great event. And I've gotten several calls on people requesting, petitioning, and asking how they could help to make that an annual thing for our students and our community to get charged up, get those batteries ready to go. So to you.
No,
I'll
I
pass
didn't
that
do anything,
commitment
but
on
no,
to
but
you.
thank you, and I defer to others. But it was a great opportunity for us to hold hands with the city and demonstrate what we can do together. And as I mentioned that night, we have many, many, many more partnerships that are coming out.
Very good, very good. Anything else from the board? Any further questions on that? Hearing none. New business, is there anything for new business? Hearing none. We have our next hearing of the public. Do we have anything from the public? Going once? Here we go, okay. I knew we'd have a taker. Outstanding.
My name is Chiquita Cannon-Jones. First, I want to say thank you for the great Tighten Up Day that we had downtown Lorain. That was awesome.
Thanks for coming and working it.
Thank you. I have a couple of things. I had received several texts on Friday with concerns pertaining to social workers being removed from the high school. I don't know how true that is, but I got 4 texts from 4 different social workers about their concerns about moving from the high school. I'm just here as an advocate. Since I work as a health professional in the high school, they're a part of my team. So when there's things that I can't handle in the building when it comes to mental health, any outreach, they're my go-to people. I have the majority of them on speed dial when something's going on in the high school and an administrator can't handle it, or our circle of team can't handle it, those are the people that I go to. So if that is being put on the table, I would please reconsider on trying to keep some of the social workers in the high school, because they're imperative to what we do here to service the kids across the board. And I know I did speak to Dr. Sturgill and Ms. AJ on the concerns that I have for wraparound services, that wraparound services just don't stop at the end of a school day or end of a school year. There are so many elements that we see in the summer by working year-round doing all different activities that we need help on. And I've called on some of these social workers for the help that we need for wraparound services. So I hope it's something in the future that you guys consider, is to have someone here year-round, so when there's things going on, because we have band, we have cheer, we have sports, we have so many other activities that go on, and we had an awesome camp that they went the whole entire summer. And kids come up and talk to you because you're building relationships and you're building bridges, and they're able to be comfortable enough to tell you the things that are going on in their lives. But we need that extra hand to be able to move them on to the next step. So that's the reason I'm here. And then my other teammates, which is the safety officers in the high school, that's my other. So we work as a team, and I'm just here as support for those teammates. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Respond very quickly?
Sure.
First of all, Chiquita, thanks for your support of everybody, and I appreciate who you are. The question about social workers is one that I've gotten many, many questions about. And very long story short, we recognize that our students' grades pre-K to 12 are in need of counseling and group work. And right now, we're trying to learn the best way to accommodate that need. So we recognize it's something that is not a high school specific piece. Pre-K 12, the needs are there. We have a group of people that are working on the best way to address those needs.
Thank you.
So we're still learning, but I appreciate that. Thanks.
Is there anything further from hearing from the public? Anyone? Anyone? Hearing none. Our next board meeting will be on August 24th at 5 o'clock right here. And we do need to go into an executive session today under items A2 and C, employment and legal.
Motion to go into executive session for the items as stated?
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Nazario?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
And Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
And we will not be taking any further actions tonight when we come out. Thank you all.